Commission. Fixed caller. That is public comment for. Are you hoping to, sorry, oh. They are. Oh. Would you like to speak in regards to something that's on the agenda or something that is not on the agenda? Okay. Okay, and that will be open. This is a general public comment if there's something they want to discuss that's not on the agenda, but we will get to you for sure on the regular agenda. Okay, consent agenda 5A, approve June 11th, 2026 regular meeting minutes. May I have a motion to approve. Second?
Second.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Commissioners, if I may just remind everybody, since we now are live streaming, if you'll remember to turn your microphones off and on when you make a comment, that'll help pick it up on the stream as well.
Public hearing and action items. The following items are the regular business of the Planning and Zoning Commission. If any item requires a public hearing, it will be notated in the caption. 6A, public hearing. Consider a request by Hark Homes LLC for a change in zoning from Brownstone R2 to local commercial district C2 for a 0.242 acre property located at 112 Robert Street, Aledo, Texas, 76008, and further described as Lot 12, Block 7, Lassiter Guy Edition.
Hello, Commissioners. Good evening. Grant Forrest, Senior Planner with Berkeley Group. Hope everyone is doing well. This item tonight is being requested by Hark Homes LLC. As mentioned, it is at 112 Robert Street, roughly 0.24 acres in size, currently zoned R2, proposed for C2. For this request, staff completed all state-mandated public hearing notice requirements by mailing letters to property owners within 200 feet. I do have an update for you for the mail-out notices. Staff did receive 2 notices in opposition of the request to the properties within 200 feet that received a notice. Staff also published notice within the Weatherford Democrat newspaper, and a sign was also posted at the property advertising the public hearing. Again, this request is for 112 Robert Street on the northeast corner of Pine and Robert Street. The applicant is requesting to rezone from R2 to C2 for a proposed new construction commercial professional office. There is an existing residential structure on the property that is proposed for removal. The property is abutted by the following land uses and zoning districts: a C2 along 1187, the Pine Street corridor of C2, a C2 across Robert Street, and then R2 zoning to the west. Included in your packet is a staff analysis and criteria for consideration. The criteria is outlined in the city's Unified Development Code. Included is the purpose of the R2 zoning district, which are residential properties with medium densities, lots less than 6,000 square feet, including duplexes, townhomes, and other missing middle housing types, which is the current zoning district, and then the C2 zoning district, which are non-residential uses operating as office, commercial, or neighborhood services. The UDC also states that the intent of C2 is to accommodate a range and different scales of non-residential uses, including office, retail, commercial, and service uses. Encourage site planning, land use planning, and architectural design that create interesting and attractive environments. Maintain and enhance the city's economic base and provide a range of shopping, entertainment, housing, lodging, and employment opportunities for the residents and visitors of the city. And lastly, minimize potential negative impacts of commercial and mixed-use development on adjacent residential neighborhoods and help ensure that the appearance and operational impacts of commercial and mixed-use developments do not adversely affect the character of the areas in which they are located. Also included in your packet, this is also from the UDC, the criteria for consideration when reviewing zone change requests. In making the determination, the city shall consider, but is not limited to, the following factors. Whether the uses permitted by the proposed change will be appropriate in the immediate area concerned in their relationship to the general area and city as a whole. 2, whether the proposed change is in accord with any existing or proposed plans for providing public schools, streets, water supply, sanitary sewer, and other utilities to the area, and shall note the findings. 3, the amount of vacant land classified for similar development in the vicinity and elsewhere in the city, and any special circumstances which may make a substantial part of such vacant land unsuitable for development. 4, the recent rate at which land is being developed in the same zoning classification as the request, particularly in the vicinity of the proposed change. 5, the manner in which other areas zoned for similar development will be or are likely to be affected if the proposed amendment is approved, and whether the zoning classification for other areas should also be modified. And 6, any other factors which will substantially affect the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community. In terms of future land use contemplations, the future land use map from 2018 contemplates this property as planned development, which is a designation intended to provide flexibility for a range of compatible land uses. Accordingly, staff finds that the request from R2 to C2 is consistent with the future land use map designation, as it contemplates a potential transition from the R2 zoning district. Additionally, staff finds that the request is compatible within the surrounding development pattern. The subject property is located adjacent to an established commercial corridor along FM 1187 and along Pine Street. While the property is adjacent to residentially zoned property, the proposed development will be required to comply with the city's landscaping, screening, and buffering standards along property lines adjacent to residential uses. These requirements will be reviewed and enforced during the development process. I did want to provide some additional detail of what requirements the development code requires for commercial zone property when adjacent to residential property. Those requirements include but are not limited to either an 8-foot screening wall or a landscaping berm. In addition, there is a height restriction for commercial property when adjacent to residential zone property. The baseline building height for most commercial zoning districts in the city is 35 feet. However, if the commercial property is adjacent to residential property, then it is restricted to 15 feet. Based on staff's analysis, staff is recommending approval of this rezoning request. One last item I wanted to note that included in your packet is a conceptual site plan provided by the applicant. These materials were provided by the applicant for informational purposes only and are not part of this consideration. Approval of the rezoning does not approve conceptual plans. Any future development of the property will be subject to the applicable provisions of the UDC and Code of Ordinances. Again, this request tonight is specific to the land use. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and I know the applicant is present as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Grant. Planning and zoning, does anyone have questions?
Yeah, I'd just like to clarify a question about the maximum height of any structure that would be allowed on this property. On one side, the subject property is adjacent to a lot that's currently zoned residential. So does that mean the practical implication of that is that any development on this property, if it were to be rezoned, would be restricted to basically 1 story? Is that correct?
That's correct. So the height restriction for commercial zone property when adjacent to residentially zoned property is 15 feet.
Did everybody hear that?
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mute my mic.
Yes,
I didn't
yes.
realize that affected Grant's volume.
Yes, so because there's an adjacent residential property, any structure built on this lot is restricted to the 15 feet height.
So all the items that are provided on the layout that was in that packet that will have to be revised as it goes through the review process?
Yes, so they just had submitted that as kind of an example of what may be coming forward. It isn't their formal submittal for the site development. And yes, anything that they do submit formally would have to comply.
Thank you.
And we have a question about the parking spaces also on the side of the Robert Street. It shows like a 20-foot setback and noting that that area gets a lot of traffic. Will cars be able to turn around within the parking area? And it seems like it's going to cause more congestion there. If anybody could clarify that.
So the applicant is here and could probably speak to that, but I need to remind the commissioners that tonight you're tasked with deciding if the rezoning to the commercial is appropriate. So the site development, the parking, the design of the structure itself, isn't a factor in the land use. And so really what's being considered is it appropriate for this to turn into a commercial property based on the surrounding properties? But I'm sure the applicant can answer that question. But when you're making your decision tonight, it's about the appropriateness of this being a commercial property.
May we invite you up to speak? No.
Hey, everyone. Wow, that's loud. My name's Jonah Mills. I'm here to represent Hart Homes. Yeah, so we're looking to rezone the property. We recently purchased it this summer, and Hart Homes has a history in Aledo. I don't know how many of you are familiar. They've been in the town since 2019, and they're a residential home builder. They also have a commercial side of the business where they've done remodels and new construction for commercial. The owners did buy the property, so the owners of the company own the land. They previously were in the Cultivate office space across the street, and they're really supportive of this corridor. Their business has been located there since it was founded, and so they're excited to add to that. They would look to have a few tenants in the building, so it wouldn't be just for their staff. If you know, they're over in Parks of Aledo. They have a model home. Right now, they're located on East Bankhead Highway, so they have a rental space over there since they moved out of Cultivate. There are a lot of questions to be answered during design and the development phase. I've talked with Grant about the parking issue. It is a pretty small lot, and it's on a corner, so a lot of those parking lots are kind of right off the street. Some of them are a little bit offset off the street. So we are going to look at, when we go to design the building, if the rezoning is approved, we would certainly work with the city staff to figure out the best and safest way to provide for parking on the site. Yep. So if you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer. But at this time, we're just looking for a decision on the zoning based on the fact that on three sides there are commercially zoned properties, and then the residential neighbor on the back side of the lot. One of the clarifications I had Grant talk to me about was the setbacks and kind of, is the front yard facing Robert Street or Pine Street? I think that's something we can figure out during design as well, but I think the side yard setback and the front yard setback are slightly different. Anyways, thanks for having me, and happy to answer any more questions.
Anyone else have any questions on the count?
I don't have any questions at this time.
At this time, we will hold the public hearing. We did receive a emailed copy from Susan, and I always mispronounce her last name.
Hotelin.
Hotelin, yes. It is, all of the commissioners have received a copy of it, a hard copy of it, and the city secretary has a copy on it for official record. There are, in addition, 2 people that would like to speak.
I'm sorry, Chair, to interrupt. Could you just note for the record whether or not the email was in support or opposition of the zoning change?
Yes, I apologize. The email was in opposition of the rezoning to 112 Robert Street.
And would you also mind stating for the record what time we opened the public hearing?
Yes. Public hearing is now open at 6:27 PM. The first person to speak, Marianne Godby. Yes.
Hi, I'm Marianne Godby, and I live at 200 Robert Street. So I live 6 lots down from the proposed building. I do oppose this building. I just don't see a need for a commercial in the neighborhood. We all know that everything that faces 1187 is commercial, but now you're infiltrating into the neighborhood. You're taking an established home and trying to change it to a commercial building. We have enough issues in that neighborhood as it is with traffic, with the traffic from Cultivate, with the traffic at the doctor's office. A lot of times they don't pull down into the parking lot, so bumpers stick out in the road. We have to swing out. You've got people turning in. And I don't see the need to tear down a home to build a building on less than a quarter of an acre of lot that can thankfully only be 15 feet high, that's next to a home. And you want to put 16 parking spots around it. My house is different, in fact, in the fact that my address is 200 Robert Street, but my house faces Cherry. Anything and everything that we do that we have to get a permit, everything has to go with the Robert Street address. I don't think I would be allowed to put 6 parking spots in my front yard. That's my front yard. I can't even put a fence higher than 3 feet in my front yard because that's my front yard. Robert Street is my front yard, even though technically it's my side yard. I don't think it's fair to anyone in the neighborhood, being in the neighborhood for 24 years. I know Miss Wood has been in longer than I have. I just don't think it's fair, and I think we should oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. Carrie Wood, would you like to speak?
If that's okay, that I could hand to y'all, is that fine? This is yesterday's parking on a street and on street. Cars are on time. There's 15, 20 cars behind the doctor's office. Out. Here's your color picture that you guys can at a color picture. This is something that we deal with a couple times a month. Sometimes more parking than that. I'm Carrie Wood, I'm sorry. I'm 116 Robert Street. I'm adjacent to the, home that we're going to be tearing down or looking to be tore down. And that's correct. I've been out here since 1980. probably longer than some of you are old. So been here a long time, raised 2 kids. I have grandkids. My house is, well, it's been my home for 38 years. Rebecca, you asking the height of the building was a blessing. What it says in the blueprints is 35 foot tall. So it was a terrible thought. So 15 foot tall is helping. But I don't think that we should tear down a home to build another building. We are tearing down from Interstate 20 to Bankhead to Bailey Ranch. We're tearing down all of that. Why should we tear down a good home, somebody's starter home that could come in and be a part of our community? I don't know, how would y'all feel about it if they were going to do that next door to your home? Within 12 foot, 15 foot of your home. You know, it's not something that any of us want. I know Aledo has to grow, but it doesn't have to grow in this neighborhood. We have a lot of business in this neighborhood. Most of the homes in that neighborhood are owned. There are some rental properties, yes, but most of them are owned, and we've been there a long time. So if we're just taking steps today that this is going to be approved, can any of you say, yes, Carrie, this is already approved? Or are we truly able to fight to keep this home, to keep our neighborhood? I'm just asking. Can anybody here say this is a done deal? Or the reason why I say that is because I have 8 points that I would like to go over with of what I've looked up, the depreciation of my property. Oh, is that my time up? Oh, okay. Well, the next meeting then. Can I have just 2 more minutes?
You have the discretion to give her more time, don't you?
The chair does have discretion to give more time, but I would also note for the board that this item is required to go before the city council for approval as well.
Okay, can I have Susan's 3 minutes?
Ms. Hotellin wasn't present, so her comments are being recorded for the record.
Okay, so do I need to take these to city council, the 8 points that I would like to talk about this building?
The chair may decide if she wants to extend some extra time, but yeah, there is an opportunity at council as well.
Okay. Thank you.
May I speak? I want to answer your question. None of us have talked about this beforehand, so we're making the decision here live tonight. We can't discuss the business of the meeting prior to coming here. It's not allowed.
Oh, okay. I just didn't want to be up here and be all emotional if this is already a done deal.
I have no idea what
Okay.
anyone else up here thinks, other than what the staff wrote in here, which you read as well.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, well, thank you.
If you would like more, you can have 2, 3 more minutes.
Oh,
Yes.
wonderful. Okay. So, the depreciation on a residence that's next to a business property, it's between 5 and 8% average of depreciation. Unless you're within 200 foot of that business, then you can lose up to 15% of your property value. In the state of Texas, there are several districts that have savings or slush accounts to help support people that are losing the depreciation in their home to grow the county. I wanted to ask if the city of Aledo has a slush fund for depreciation if we move through with this. Does anybody know?
So ma'am, the board can't respond to your questions at this time, but you can get with city staff after the meeting.
Awesome. Okay. When they're building and doing their demolition, do they use sound barriers? Is there anything to catch the dust, the dirt, the noise? I have seen other places that have done demolitions and they have big white sheets that catch some of the dust, catch some of the noise. I don't know if y'all know anything about that. I did go around and measure all the fences that are behind all the businesses. And I spoke to one of the girls in the zoning department, and 8 foot, I thought they were 10 foot, but 8 foot. And I appreciate that being a part that you have to do. Putting 5 parking spaces on Robert Street and having one of them being handicap, I think if that has to be done, maybe 3 parking spaces and 2 of those being handicap, that's going to stop some of the traffic going down Robert Street. I did have it 2-story and now it's 1-story and I'm so excited. But windows in the back of the building I know you have to have natural light coming into a building. I would like to suggest skylights to the back of the building so no one's looking into my bedrooms. The security, will they have security? I'm sure they will. Most businesses have some kind of security, but will the lights shine in my backyard or will the lights shine from the back to the front? That makes a lot of difference. And then I'm only 10 foot away from the next house. There's my minutes. I'm only 10 foot away. So when we do the demolition, I'm going to be out there every day if it happens. Thank you, guys. Thanks for the extra minute.
Thank you, Carrie. Does planning and zoning have any other questions or comments? Oh,
I would ask if there's anybody else.
okay. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? I apologize.
Yes. Mhm. You're able to step up and respond. Yes.
Thank you. It's Jonah Mills again. I know the parking, I worked in the Cultivate building for over a year and I know it's bad. The reason we showed parking on both streets is because the city ordinance does require a certain amount of spots. Since it will be a 1-story and there won't be as many people in the building, we can work with staff to make sure we have the right amount of parking spots. Also, the code required 1 handicap spot. I don't know if we're allowed to do more, but I know at least we have to have 1 based on the number of required spots. And then the concerns with construction are definitely real. Being in the residential construction business, we deal with demolition and noise, and it's obviously something that we will heavily consider if the project is approved in the future, and we'll be conscious of our neighbors. I wanted to note as well, the commercial lots on all the other streets, we would essentially extend those type of businesses. It wouldn't be a restaurant or heavily trafficked. It's mostly small professional offices. So you might have a few employees in each part of the building. So, but I appreciate the comments from the neighbors and we'll definitely keep that in consideration as we look to develop the property. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? With that, I will close the public hearing at 6:40 p.m. Planning and zoning, any questions?
The property that is across the street on the south side of Robert Street, so that's a vacant lot now? Correct? And that is zoned commercial? Correct. Do we have any idea when that was changed over, or is that when that was zoned at all?
I don't have that information with me, but I can try to look it up quickly while we're discussing.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you remember?
Miss Wood, I'm sorry, do you mind coming forward just so that everyone can hear your response?
It's been about 5 years ago when it was zoned commercial. Some doctors were going to buy into it and build a doctor specialty building there. I believe it was Crutchmeyer and some of his doctors. But for some odd reason, it fell through. And I don't believe they've put it back up for sale since then. And it's 3 vacant lots on Robert Street behind Dr. Crutchmar's office.
I have actually two questions. The first refers to the written statement that was submitted by Ms. Howland. Can staff, is there anyone here on city staff that can validate her statement about the traffic on Robert Street and the study that was done? Is that a legit concern? Do we know? Do we know anything about that traffic study that she cites?
No, ma'am. No one currently. I'm sure we could find the information.
I would like to know if if her statement is correct. Was there a traffic study, and if so, does it say what she summarizes it to say? I think that's germane. My second question is really more basic as to exactly what decision we're being asked to make tonight. I think I understand, but I would like to clarify that. So I'm going to say what I think the decision is, and if you all would please advise me if my understanding is correct. The only decision we're allowed to make that we need to vote on is this. Is commercial use of this property appropriate?
That is correct.
We are not being asked to determine is the specific set of criteria that's been presented by Art Combs the right way to go about developing this property
That
as
is
commercial.
that is correct.
Okay, that being the case, what I'm struggling with is the answer to the first question is to some degree linked to the second point. The devil is in the details. So it's certainly possible that commercial use could be compatible and appropriate. It's also equally possible that it might not be, depending on what actually is developed on this property, should it be rezoned. And what I need is some guidance from council or staff as to how it is we're supposed to reconcile that as we make our decision.
Well, so certainly, I think you can narrow it down even more to, are the commercial uses proposed by C2 zoning compatible? Because the city has a variety of commercial zonings, some more intense, some less intense than others listed in the city code. So when we're looking at and I think Grant summarized it nicely, and it's in your packets. Let's see, the intent of the C2 commercial zoning district, looking at the intent in the UDC, along with what the city's blueprint or intent for that area is in the future, and the uses that are contemplated by C2 zoning, whether or not that is appropriate in an area that is mostly surrounded by C2, but also abutted by residential.
But the C2 zoning is also required to be, I've forgotten exactly what the word is, but it has to be consistent with adjacent residential uses. And that depends to a large degree on not just the exact use, but the way that use is operationalized.
And that's certainly something that I think is a fair question for city staff, for the developer, and why we're here tonight is for the board to kind of suss that out. Because while you do have guidelines, there's nothing specifically in the code that says, yes, this certain piece of property has to be zoned C2 or has to be zoned residential. So I may defer to Grant to speak more to the technical planning aspects of why C2 could be an appropriate use to this on this piece of property.
Sure, I can elaborate on that, and please let me know if I need to speak up. But in terms of why C2 may be an appropriate zoning district for this property, one thing that goes into consideration is what is the surrounding development pattern and surrounding zoning adjacent to the property. So one part of that analysis is the C2 corridor that's been established along FM 1187, but then also along Pine Street, the corner lots that have historically been rezoned to C2, essentially establishing that commercial corridor along Pine Street as well. Other contemplations of, why C2 may be appropriate for this property, the future land use map that is in place at this time contemplates planned development, a district, meaning that it contemplates a variety of uses for this property and that there could be a potential transition from the existing residential. So, to summarize, there's the future land use consideration and then the surrounding development and zoning patterns adjacent to the site.
One other question, as far as us new guys to planning and zoning, I'm an alternate. Their decision then would be given to the city council?
Yes, that is correct. So tonight, the Planning and Zoning Commission would be recommending either approval or denial, but final decision authority rests with the city council.
Technically, no, since the public hearing is now closed. Sorry. Any other questions from commissioners?
Yeah, and I apologize. I should know the answer to this question, but this is function of being new to the commission. What is the approval process within the city for the final plat of the property should it be rezoned? Does that rest with us or with just with city staff or the council?
Are you speaking about the plat in particular or the site development process? Because they are different processes.
I was using those terms kind of interchangeably. The final execution of the commercial, the anticipated commercial development. What part of the city actually approves that?
Grant, can you speak a little bit about if this was to be approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission and Council as a rezone, what the site development process would look like?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioners, so this property is already platted. So it has a recorded land registration. The circumstances that it may come back before you in the form of a plat would be if they propose to replat the property at all, if they need to modify any lot boundaries or make any changes to the plat that is already in place for the property. So I do want to make that clarification that it does already have a recorded plat. In terms of the site development process and development review process, that generally is internal administrative process. So site development review goes before planning, public works, engineering, building code, and fire for review. Same with any building review as well. The only instance for development related items that it may go back before a board would be if they applied for any variances. And in that case, it would be before the zoning board of adjustment.
Grant, while you're unmuted, do you want to touch on the site? Well, I guess how staff handles that internally, like how that review, what that review process will look like for the board for the site plan?
Yeah, sure. For review of any site plan, so first component of it would be site development review. That would be where engineering reviews the utilities and drainage for the site. And planning would review all site-related items with site development review, so parking, tree preservation, lighting standards. In this instance, that is when I would review to ensure that the buffering standards for commercial property adjacent to residential, make sure that those are in place. So the screening wall, the building height, things of that nature. I would also review parking. Other departments would have their review of the site as well, all site-related items. And then from there, it would go to actual review of the vertical building. Review of that during the building permit review is largely building code related at that point. All site-related items should be kind of worked through in the site development process, which comes before building permit.
Is there an appeal process on the part of any member of the public to that process?
Are members of the public part of the site development process?
What I mean is once the process unfolds, the way Grant just explained it, does a member of the public have any opportunity to appeal that? Does it go to council, or is the staff decision on a permit for that? Just that's how it's done.
I would have to double check the city's code of ordinances because every city does it a little bit differently. But speaking in generalities, there is not an appeals process for just any citizen of the city. The appeals process would be specific to the person who's pulling the permits if they were not satisfied with how their project had been interpreted or handled. It's really more on the developer side, not really on the citizen side. But saying that, I would have to review Aledo's city code specifically to verify that's the process this city.
Thank you.
And once a project comes forward through site development, I mean, it is meeting the criteria and standards that the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council have adopted through the UDC. So those are the standards that are being applied.
Are there any other questions from the commissioners? With that, we will call for a motion. What is the P and Z's pleasure? Is there a motion to approve or deny?
I'll motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion to approve this.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Sandy, since you're an alternate.
Oh,
this
I can't do
evening-
that?
No, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'll second the motion.
We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye. What? Opposed?
Opposed.
So with that, the motion will pass. No, we were just adjourning, so, yeah. With that, we will adjourn the planning and zoning. Thank you.